As the natural evolution of text-based adventure games, the point-and-click genre has consistently been the source for some of the most imaginative experiences in all of gaming. From wannabe pirates sailing the high seas, to talking tentacles trying to take over the world, to even thoughtful renditions of our own afterlife. Without the conventional limitations found in other genres, the only true limits are within the developer's own imagination, making it the ideal starting point for any ambitious indie studio, especially when it gives them the chance to showcase a part of the world that isn't commonly explored in modern media. Such was the case for British studio Polygon Treehouse, who wanted to provide gamers with a modern take on the point-and-click adventure, one that was deeply rooted in Scandinavian folklore and inspired by classic films like Labyrinth, while also featuring easily accessible puzzles and exploration mechanics. Their hope was to create an experience that was able to blend fantastical elements with real human emotions. The end result? A charming little point-and-click adventure that manages to effectively explore themes of loss and family while still providing players with a plethora of complex challenges to tackle. So let's talk about it. This is Roki. Deep within the mountains, a young girl named Tove lives with her father, Henrik, and younger brother, Lars. Following the loss of her mother, Tove spends most of her days tending to her incredibly imaginative brother, while her grief-stricken father spends his time asleep in front of the fire. However, one night after telling Lars his favorite fairy tale, the children's home is attacked by a giant black creature who tears apart their house in an attempt to kidnap Lars. In the ensuing chaos, Henrik is left trapped beneath the burning rubble of their home, forcing his children to leave him behind. Together, the siblings manage to escape down the mountain and reach the forest at its base. But as the two cut through it with the hopes of reaching the town on the other side, Lars gets distracted by something in the woods, allowing him to be captured by the monster. Tove quickly gives chase, leading her to the edge of a lake where she can only watch in horror as Lars is dragged through a magical gateway. She attempts to follow after him, but the doorway swiftly closes behind them, leaving the two siblings separated with no way of reaching each other. As dawn breaks, Tove awakens alone within the woods, only to find that due to her coming within close proximity of the magical gateway as it closed, she can now see the many magical creatures that inhabit the forest. It's from them that she learns that her brother was kidnapped by Roki, the son of Roka, one of 4 powerful Jotuns that served as guardians of the forest. But after Roka fell in love with a mortal man and had a child with him, her siblings banished her to Utengar out of fear of the child's potential. Now she seeks to free her son from his imprisonment by performing a ritual that'll turn him into a human. But to achieve this, her spell will require a living sacrifice. Learning of this, Tove sets off into the woods to find the other 3 Jotun guardians, as it's only with their help can she reopen the gateway and save her brother. Along the way though, she'll have to help all manner of magical creatures to obtain the necessary skills to face them. But if she has any hope of saving her brother, then she'll need to do more than simply help the forest. She'll need to help herself. While on the surface, Roki's story might appear to be just a quirky little adventure with a fantasy theme, it's actually quite the complex narrative. Not only does it feature a cast of well-written characters who manage to strike the right balance between witty and emotionally captivating, but it also effectively explores themes of family, childhood trauma, and even the loss of one's personal identity, all the while keeping things family-friendly. This is a game that'll have you feeling sympathy for monsters and enjoying the banter between various mythological creatures, while also giving us a comprehensive understanding of the complex world of Scandinavian mythology. All done without any actual voiced dialogue, just a series of text bubbles and a well-crafted aesthetic. It's quite impressive, especially for newcomers to the games industry. Despite a slow start, it's hard not to get suckered into this world, especially when Polygon Treehouse has taken many of the traditional ideas found in point-and-click adventures and effectively flipped them on their head. For example, while most developers would treat the environment and characters as two separate entities, the narrative of Roki effectively merges them into one. Not only would it allow the art style to remain consistent throughout the entire game, as well as better emphasize the connections between reality and mythology, but it would also diegetically explain why the many mythical creatures you encounter share the same color palette as what's around them. As reality and myth blur together, it only makes sense that one wouldn't be able to separate the two. Furthermore, while it would have been easy for the writers to portray Tovei as a naive child who struggles to make sense of this fantastical world, they instead chose to present her as a witty teen with all the edge you'd find in an adult adventurer, making her more than capable of solving the many intricate puzzles that she's faced with. This in turn lulls the audience into a false sense of security, so when the writers do start peeling back her layers, you'll begin to realize that despite her outward demeanor, she's still just a kid. At her core, Tovei is a teenager who's been forced into the role of an adult, resulting in her acting against her own nature. As such, her personal conflicts feel more authentic since they're a byproduct of real and unfortunate circumstances. Yet if she has any hope of freeing the Yoten and saving her brother, then she'll need to confront the truth about herself and her own family. Only then will she have any hope of breaking free of this cage that she's constructed around herself. Roki is quite the prolific story, one that's a lot more complex than you might first imagine. Not only does it emphasize the importance of family, but it also shows us how damaging the simplest of decisions can be, especially to a young mind. Sure, like most point-and-click adventures, it'll have you running around doing errands for a chaotic cast of side characters, but by centering the story around two broken families stubbornly trapped in their own zeal, it allows the writers to use the conventions of Scandinavian mythology to tell a deeply relatable story, one that will lead you to settling disputes between giant trolls, helping sentient trees reconnect with their family, and ultimately resolving a conflict that left even the mightiest of Jotun powerless. From serene woodland to the peak of mountaintops to even the depths of a Nokken's lair, Tovei's journey will lead her all across this mythical forest. But if she hopes to save her brother, then she'll have to muster up her courage, reconcile with the past, and be prepared to outsmart monsters born from her worst nightmares. Like any other point-and-click adventure, Roki's gameplay can be broken down into two key areas: player exploration and puzzle solving, both of which work in tandem to create a satisfying gameplay loop that rewards creativity and thinking outside the box. In the beginning, all you'll have is your backpack to store items and Tovei's own wits, but as you explore this vast world, traveling back and forth between various locations, you'll gradually acquire an ensemble of different items. From valuable tools you'll use throughout the entire game, like a rusted blade perfect for cutting away vines, to simple items that can be combined with others to create more powerful gadgets, like a rope trap perfectly suited for removing sharp objects from trolls. Later on, you'll even attain several magical relics which can provide even greater insights into this complex world, like a mask that can turn invisible creatures visible so long as Tovei is wearing it, or an enchanted flute that will allow her to commune with the forest's more magically inclined creatures. These relics do a good job of widening your prospects, offering new ways for the player to tackle every puzzle. Still, despite how fantastical Tovei's situation might be, every challenge in this game is still based on logic. So you're not going to fail to complete a puzzle because the solution is so absurd that no sane person would ever think of it. While in the beginning it'll usually be a case of you finding the right collection of items to appease whichever magical beast is blocking your way, as the game goes on, on, Polygon Treehouse will naturally start to introduce more complex mechanics to ensure a steady increase in difficulty, like having the player use natural lighting to mold shadows into a particular image, forcing them to carefully time their movements so they can evade the reach of a dangerous monster, or even altering the position of various mirrors to project sunlight onto a giant spider, all so that they can explore more of a finite area. Each of these mechanics goes a long way in ensuring the puzzles remain fresh while keeping the gameplay challenging for the player. Over the course of its lengthy campaign, Roki will test everything from your long-term memory to your understanding of patterns and stars to even how you coordinate the actions of multiple player characters. Needless to say, the developers hit the mark when it came to crafting complex puzzles. There's a good range of differences between each of them, and none of them feel too unfair to engage with. In fact, there was never a moment in this game where I felt genuine frustration towards the puzzle design. Polygon Treehouse's hope with Roki was to help modernize the point-and-click genre, and as such, they made sure not to include any of the genre's more hated tropes, like timed puzzles, hidden traps, or easily missed items. Instead, they took the time to include several user-friendly features to make the gameplay more accessible and to help instill within the player the innate desire to keep seeking answers. For starters, they included a toggle that highlights all interactive items and characters within an area, allowing one to immediately know where exactly they should go. Then there are the way trees, a family of sentient trees that can be found throughout the forest. These guys act as fast travel stations. By helping each of them, you'll be able to quickly travel to any other key point on the map with ease, allowing you to cut down on travel time and focus more on the moment-to-moment gameplay. Additionally, you also have a journal that includes a map of each location as well as information about the area and any characters that are found within, allowing one to remain up to date on their progress and any locations that they need to travel to. Each of these additions goes a long way in making an already enjoyable puzzler a lot more engaging by removing much of the hassle that comes from backtracking. Roki is the ideal point-and-click adventure game, one that is able to effectively erase the endless hours of idle wandering that so commonly plagues the genre without conflicting with its open-ended design. In doing so, it allows the players to focus more on exploring this picturesque world and getting to know the many quirky inhabitants of the forest, each of whom will have their own problems that need to be solved, but with a little bit of ingenuity and some good old logic, you'll be able to find a solution to even the most bizarre of dilemmas. Unlike some old school puzzlers, Roki knows exactly what it's trying to be and doesn't do anything that might conflict with its core design. It's an elegant little game that'll draw you in with its fantastical setting, challenge you with its complex puzzles, and leave you hungry for more by its conclusion. Of course, you can't have a stellar point-and-click adventure game without including one hell of a soundtrack, one that appeals to the simplicity of the genre yet can resonate with gamers of any age. While thanks to the efforts of Scottish artist Aether, Roki's music strikes the right balance between relaxing and haunting. Among these 40 tracks, there's a good blend of flutes, pianos, and other wind-based instruments, each of which is perfectly capable of evoking the ideal atmosphere. From the eerie stillness within the caves of the Nokken to the serenity and wonder of the forest, to even the unease found from revisiting one's own memories. Aether has carefully tailored each musical track to fit not only the environment but also Tove's state of mind, with special care given to those used in the game's dream sequences, since that's where she's at her most vulnerable. It's during these moments that the music shines, as the line between fantasy and reality becomes blurred. Of course, if you're going to have a game whose story delves into Scandinavian myth while also emphasizing the importance of the normal world, then you'll need to make sure the sound design can appeal to the mystical as much as the mundane. After all, you can't fully appreciate the uniqueness of either if they both look and sound the same. As such, the developers made sure that the game's ambient and action-based sounds were able to strike the right balance between recognizable and otherworldly. Like how the simple act of cutting vines with your dagger will start with some sharp clang, only to be followed by a loud groaning as the vines recede, evoking the idea that you're fighting against something that's fully aware of the pain you've caused it. Or how using the mask of all-seeing will result in this ever-present whirring sound, giving one the impression that they're peering into a world that's meant to remain unseen. Hell, even though there's no audible dialogue throughout the game, Polygon Treehouse made sure to use Scandinavian voice actors for all the sounds their characters make, adding an extra layer of authenticity to the story, even if all you can discern is an accent. Little touches like these go a long way in making the world of Roki feel so much more alive, while also contributing to the game's soundtrack. Put them together and what you have is a fantasy aesthetic that feels both familiar and unique. If one were to describe Roki's visual style, it'd be as though someone took a picture book and brought it to life. Thanks to the flexibility of the Unity engine, Polygon Treehouse was able to effectively integrate a hand-drawn art style into a 3D world without having to sacrifice any of the subtleties that come with 2D art, like the careful blend of natural shadows and hand-drawn shading, the usage of shapes and bold colors to indicate points of interest, or even more nuanced details like the gentle swaying of leaves and the creases formed from walking in the snow. All these components come together to create a fully realized fantasy world, one that is able to look and feel familiar while still crossing the boundaries of the uncanny valley without becoming too unsettling. This is especially true of the monsters, who can range from adorable to unnerving to downright beautiful. Unsurprising, considering each one was designed using layered flat geometry, a technique that allows 3D artists to fake dimensions on an otherwise flat model, kinda like with shadow puppets. With this, developers can save space on rendering a fully 3D model, keeping the game's overall size relatively small without sacrificing any detail. Not only that, but it also allows them to dedicate more time to designing the environments, where naturally much of the puzzle solving will take place. From the foreground to the background, the visual artists left no corner of this world untouched. Even without the highlighting tool, thanks to some masterful use of color, Polygon Treehouse has ensured that their players always know exactly what they can and can't interact with, allowing one to appreciate the finer details all the more while they seamlessly transition from one corner of the forest to the next. It's hard not to get drawn into Roki's world when every inch of this fantastical environment has been supplied with all kinds of little details that just make it feel all the more real. Safe to say, Roki is the perfect point-and-click adventure for modern gamers. Not only does it feature an incredibly captivating story that manages to strike the right balance between thoughtful and goofy, but it also has some of the most engaging puzzles one can find in the genre. Full of unique solutions that remain firmly grounded in reality while still being able to stretch one's imagination. With a soundtrack that exudes the otherworldly, as well as visuals that seem to have been ripped straight out of a storybook, Roki is the ideal entry point for those looking to explore Scandinavian myth without having to deal with its more grisly aspects. Still, even if you're not interested in that, Tove's journey across the snowy wilderness is incredibly thought-provoking. At any moment, it can have you laughing, crying, or even raging at the tragedy of life while also celebrating its brilliance. So whether you're a fan of the genre or just looking for a well-written story, Roki is the perfect game for you.